The key tell us that Earthman will be able to see and understand the appearance and morphology of the higher spiritual intelligences who come from higher dimensions and are called whole light beings. They are not to be confused with non-human space intelligence from other physical worlds. These cosmological orders of higher intelligence will explain the beginnings of life on Earth and the developments of intelligence and technical civilizations among distant galactic communities. These intelligences can assume any physical form necessary to operate in any given time-space sequence. In our consciousness time zone, they can appear in space vehicles, creating pyramidal patterns of light in the sky. The key explains how wheels of technology, modulated by thought waves from sun universes, can visit the outer limits of our galaxy and communicate through faces of pyramids. These are not three-dimensional geometries of inanimate matter, but multi-dimensional pyramidal combinations which form the inner wheel of the Merkaba vehicle. These multi-dimensional pyramid combinations include what Enoch calls triangular bipyramids, which are pyramids connecting at the baseline so as to revolve as a sphere. Hello, my galactic people. You are now tuned into the Legacy YouTube channel, the planetary headquarters for all of your celestial information. Today, we are giving you a cosmic update. We're talking about all the current events when it comes to UFOs, UAPs, people visiting planet Earth from different star systems. We know that from the congressional hearing that just went down that UAPs are real. Multiple government officials have come forth talking about this, and we have video evidence and pictorial evidence of these crafts flying in the sky. They take a multitude of different shapes. And this episode, we're going to focus on the different classifications of these crafts and beings. How do they look? What is their appearance? What sources can we go to get actual truth about the matter? And if you follow along, you will enjoy the ride, I promise. Before we jump in, I want to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel so you do stay up to date with all of the cosmic information. My name is Deadrick Baker, joined with my brother Tay Chilla. All of our socials will be in the description. And let's go, not bird watching, UAP watching.
There's some hot new images that have been dropped, possible leaks from the alleged Immaculate Constellation classified UAP program that has been hidden from Congress, is what we got told, in the past few weeks at the hearing. And so what's interesting is that some of these new UAP photos floating around online are actually coming from a mysterious whistleblower that is saying, look, here's some photos from that database. I'm putting this out there because we have a small window to get Congress interested enough and the people interested enough to actually push the ball forward so that this doesn't just keep having a cover-up that is non-productive for the people that work in the program, the people that don't know about the program. So those are all the juicy bits flying around in the air, literally unidentified flying around in the air. And we're going to be reviewing some of those. And we're also going to get some hot takes on some different categories of UAP that we have within our worldview system coming from the more spiritual side of things. As you are probably familiar if you've seen the channel, we always, we go in with the full concept of a universe frame, and we're talking, 3D aliens, angelic beings, semi-spiritual, interdimensional beings. We want to cover these topics because most people they just have a simplistic concept of alien, and we think it's more complex. So come along, join the ride, and here we go.
Heck yeah. Shout out to the Space Brothers. Technically, we're all space brothers and sisters because we're cosmic beings too. So be happy, rejoice. You're a cosmic citizen. If you didn't know it now you're conscious of it. Now act accordingly. So let's start from the beginning. We're here to give you a full understanding of what's going on, your relationship to the universe. And in order to do that, we need to paint a mental picture. We want to build a concept frame. So if you will allow us to, just cleanse your mind, make it a blank canvas, no preconceived notions, and just let us build that concept frame in your mind right now. Let me paint the mental picture. If you say, no, 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 oh, if you feel that feeling, throw it away for a second. We said blank canvas. And if I can transfer this concept clearly into your mind at the very end of this conversation, once you can see it clearly, then you can go from there. But for now, let's start from the beginning. This is from a high source of cosmic philosophy called the Urantia book. And I read it before. I'm going to read it again because I think it's a great foundation for the conversation we're about to have. From paper 115, The Supreme Being. Part 1, Relativity of Concept Frames. Partial, incomplete, and evolving intellects would be helpless in the master universe, would be unable to form the first rational thought pattern, were it not for the innate ability of all mind, high or low, to form a universe frame in which to think. If mind cannot fathom conclusions, if it cannot penetrate to true origins, then will such a mind unfailingly postulate conclusions and invent origins that it may have a means of logical thought within the frame of these mind-created postulates. And while such universe frames for creature thought are indispensable to rational intellectual operations, they are without exception erroneous to a greater or less degree. That's saying right there that it is very important to have a full mental concept frame of the universe. If you don't, you will start making up false things to fill in those gaps. We're not alive. We're not here to believe in fairy tales. We're here to figure out the true reality. We want to know what we are, who we are, how we fit into the cosmic organization. And that's the only thing we're going to accept. We're not going to start believing like Marvel comics, movies, and Star Wars and Star Trek, even though we love those. You know, the universe is far more mysterious, unique, and fascinating than those shows. So it says right here, if such a mind cannot penetrate to true origins, then will such a mind failingly postulate conclusions and invent origins so that it has a means of logical thought. So just in order to function, your mind needs to fill in those gaps. You need that conceptual framework. But the thing is, you can get a true concept frame. That's what this text is talking about. And the concept frame that's in your mind right now that we're talking about is the fact that we are getting visited by extraterrestrial beings. What do they look like? What are they going to appear as? The government has already said multiple times that this is real and we have their craft. We even have bodies. So what do they look like? Why are they here? What is their purpose? We're way past the question, are they real? We're not asking that. They are real. So what are the ramifications? How do you identify them? What is their purpose? Where are they from? Are they related to us? Are we close to them? Like what do we have the same religion? Do they believe in Jesus? Like what are these questions? What are the answers to these questions? So that's just the angle I want to start this from is painting that galactic concept frame of extraterrestrial visitation. Now, I do also want to read one more passage from the Urantia book from paper 11, The Eternal Isle of Paradise. I love how the celestials who gave us this text speak. It says, we all know the direct course to pursue to find the universal Father. You are not able to comprehend much about the divine residence because of its remoteness from you and the immensity of the intervening space. But those who are able to comprehend the meaning of these enormous distances know God's location and residence just as certainly and literally as you know the location of New York, London, Rome, or Singapore. Cities definitely and geographically located on Urantia's Earth. If you were an intelligent navigator, equipped with a ship, map, and compass, you could readily find these cities. Likewise, if you had the time and means of passage, were spiritually qualified, and had the necessary guidance, you could be piloted through the universe upon universe from circuit to circuit, ever journeying inward through these starry realms, until at last You would stand before the central shining of the spiritual glory of the universal Father. You know, provided with all the necessities for the journey, it is just as possible to find the personal presence of God at the center of all things as it is to find distances on your own planet. That you have not visited these places is in no way disproves their reality or actual existence. So that's from the Urantia book. Straight up talking about the different parts of the cosmos, just like cities. There's different stations of light, different, I guess, galactic headquarter points, different thresholds, different divisional headquarters. And these beings are traveling. They're flying through it like there's a little cosmic highway. If you had the ship and the means and you were spiritually qualified enough, then I guess this ability is possible. So just another addition to the concept frame, superimpose that.
Yeah, and so this is interesting because traditionally, religion and spirituality has this concept that like God and the afterlife and heaven and consciousness is existing in some other dimension that actually is regardless of the space that we're currently in. That's sort of how religion looks at it. Science has started to acknowledge this idea of like other dimensions, or maybe they call it parallel universes. And that's kind of their way of almost saying the same thing, right? It's like, oh, there's a potential reality, but it's not in this same time space or something. Now, it's interesting because this book that we pull so much cosmic philosophy from, it kind of explains that the universe is within the same space. However, there are still gradients and levels. And there's a reason why we as physical animal beings couldn't see maybe what has been traditionally called angelic beings. We can't see them with our physical eyes, but we're still able to have an encounter. But sometimes it requires us to be in an altered state of consciousness. And this is also an overlap with the UFO field, where people that say when they meet aliens, it's as if they're put into an altered state of consciousness. So you understand here, this is some of these metrics where it's like, well, what is the energy spectrum that these beings exist upon? You know, we're all in the same space, but possibly we're segmented into different energy spectrums. And some beings know how to sort of, you know, if you want to use a simple term, they know how to come from the fourth dimension to the third dimension. Some people like to say it like that. You know, or there's an example of a book called Flatland, which was sort of this thought experiment book where it explains that, okay, there's a 2D land of shapes. These shapes live in 2D land. However, we in 3D land, when we present something inside their land, when we put a sphere into their 2D space, they just see a flat circle, and they can't understand the sort of depth to the sphere. You know, and it'll look different. When we move the sphere closer to them, it'll look like the circle's just getting like crazy big, you know, versus far in the distance. And so what they lack is a perspective that comes with another sort of dimension and another quality of reality. And so I think that's what this is kind of getting to, is that we need the right concept frame. And then we also need to get some of these dynamic ranges in our head to understand exactly where these beings are coming from and how they exist among us or alongside us. Are they simply on another planet? Yeah, and this is even suggesting that at the center of the universe is actually the focal point for consciousness, that all consciousness comes from, and it calls that God. So that's another interesting concept. It's not the focus of this episode. We're mostly going to be talking about UAP, the beings that might be coming from off the planet, on the planet, non-human. So we'll start to get into that, but I wanted to give that primer there for you.
Hell yeah. So if you haven't watched our UAP disclosure or the analysis of the congressional hearing, I highly suggest to go watch that episode. It'll give you a lot of information, so we don't want to repeat ourselves, but they name dropped a secret program. There's a USAP, an unacknowledged special access program called Immaculate Constellation. And it's the government, the deep state, the military industrial complex, intensely, with precise instruments, documenting and recording these vehicles in our airspace, coming in and out of our upper atmosphere, and even into the water. And somebody online that's kind of big right now supposedly got some anonymous documents, right? Take Chilla, if that's the case.
Yeah, should I go into that? Kind of give a synopsis of what's going on there?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's only happened in the past week, right?
Yeah, this is within the past week. So the YouTube channel is called Strange Mysteries, and you can see it on my screen right now. Has close to 2 million subscribers. He hasn't been posting like super consistently for the past year. So these videos are, well, this video has 100K view, but anyway, so he has built an audience in the past, and he's been trying to revamp his channel, been posting recently. And so out of the blue, someone emails him and has a couple interesting things to say. And they basically say that they are a part of the Legacy UAP program, and that they have access to the Immaculate Constellation database of UAP data, photos, videos, etc., high quality, FLIR imaging, different sensors. And they tell him that, and they give a couple of reasons, and we can get into that, but they tell him that they want to provide these images to him because he has a platform, and they want to test the waters on how the public is going to react to seeing more images of these strange UAP craft. He or she also has, they seem to want to move this forward. They seem to want to have Congress get more involved, and they know that there's an opportunity here. And so I imagine that they're watching the Congress hearings. They've been in this legacy program for a while, and there's a culture to that, what it's like to work in that environment. And it seems like they want this to be a bit more open. So they're providing these photos to this YouTube channel, and he is presenting some of these these email threads that he's having back and forth. And to me, it's actually the email threads are kind of compelling. If it was just the photos alone, it'd be hard to tell. And we'll go into the photos here, but it's compelling because what I see in these emails is that sort of humanity when it comes to encountering this UAP subject. When you know for sure that this is non-human beings, that some of these craft are coming from outer space into our atmosphere, when you have access to that type of data, what does it do to your worldview? How does it shake you? How does it motivate you? Do you in your head, are you working on this for 10 plus years in the military? Are you just people are never going to know about this? And then suddenly you have these whistleblowers coming out that actually push the ball forward, and you're like, this is an opportunity. Yeah. I think people should know about this. It shouldn't be as secret as it is. This needs to be taken more seriously. I'm going to take this opportunity to push some of these photos out into the public realm. So that's the context for some of these new images that we're going to be reviewing. And yeah, well, let us know what you think. Yeah, D-Bake, you got any insights on these latest things coming out? What do you think? Are you skeptical, or what's your position?
Not at all. We actually talked about it a couple of times. The whole free will law of the cosmos, that a being of a higher evolution cannot impede or impinge upon someone's free will against their, will. You can't force someone to do anything. Like a la the Prime Directive from Star Trek, a species of a higher evolution cannot interfere with the species of a lower evolution. They can't just show up on your doorstep. They have the ability to, but they can't. That would be breaking the free will law of the cosmos. And then the really high up angels get involved, and nobody wants that. So in order for them to show themselves, we need to have the desire. We need to show the desire to want to meet them. And that is why they show themselves as just little glowing balls or ships up in the sky. Because if they were so advanced, they could just fly up to you and shake your hand, but they don't. They have to stay very far. Once they start doing that little by little, it'll get 1, 2, 3 humans looking up. Oh, wow, what's that? Oh, wow, what's that? Nah, you're crazy, Bill. You haven't been saying anything. That's all mumbo jumbo. That you're crazy. Put them in an insane asylum. Slowly over years, thousands of years. And finally, it goes from 3 people to 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, until it hits that peak breaking point in the social consciousness. And then we all start looking up and saying, oh, wait, what is that? we want to know what that is. And once the majority of us start asking that question, it allows them to move the process forward one more step because now we desire it. So we're asking them and it allows them to show up. This is what's happening with the recent congressional hearing that marks a point in the social consciousness from my point of view. So it's kind of putting out that we're ready. We want to make contact. We want to know who you guys are. And if you've noticed, ever since the congressional hearing, there has been a huge uptick in UAP sightings all over Reddit, everywhere. People are posting them. Flying triangles, flying in formation, multicolored technicolor lights. So it's happening. We're in the very midst of it right now. I think this is just one of the ways they're going to expedite the process of integrating us into the Galactic Federation. And like I said in the other episode, our planet is unique because of the Lucifer rebellion that happened about 200,000 years ago. I'm not going to go into extreme detail right now. Watch my other videos if you want to know about it. But basically 200,000 years ago, the celestial governor of our sector of the cosmos, his name was Lucifer, and he decided to take his sector for himself and rebel against the greater cosmos government of the Father and Michael. He said, this little sector is for me and these planets are mine. I'm going to do what I want with them. Dick move. It fucked everybody up. And we were one of the main planets, ground zero, Earth. When this happened, it cut off all celestial communication. It put our planet in quarantine. So that's the reason why celestials, we don't have that open communication. On a regular planet that isn't in rebellion, they would be having space brothers and sisters land all day long. They'd be seeing semi-spiritual beings glowing like flames coming in and out of the upper atmosphere, landing on a specific point, and then walking around with the people, just having fun, talking. No big deal. I'm showing up with 2 glowing balls of fire and a triangle today to the cafe, to the club, and we're kicking it. It's not a big deal. But on Earth, because of that whole Lucifer rebellion thing, it got severed and we don't get that today. So I guess this doesn't really happen very often, a rebellion where we get quarantined. So now the Celestials are working with emergency plans. They're trying to figure out how to make it work because it wasn't supposed to happen. And this whole UAP appearing as balls in the sky, I highly suspect that that is part of their emergency plan to reintegrate us. So I'm excited to be in the midst of it. I'm excited to be digesting, capturing these cosmic concepts and helping you guys understand it. So I do want to read something from the Keys of Enoch, key 205. I reread this one all the time too. The key tell us that Earthman will be able to see and understand the appearance and morphology of the higher spiritual intelligences who come from higher dimensions and are called whole light beings. They are not to be confused with non-human space intelligence from other physical worlds. These cosmological orders of higher intelligence will explain the beginnings of life on Earth and the developments of intelligence and technical civilizations among distant galactic communities. These intelligences can assume any physical form necessary to operate in any given time-space sequence. In our consciousness time zone, they can appear in space vehicles, creating pyramidal patterns of light in the sky. The onlooker will often see one of those expressions as 3 space vehicles flying in triangular formation. These vehicles operate as wheels within wheels, whereby one inner wheel of technology is surrounded by an outer wheel having energy portals. The inner wheel becomes an energy pyramid when entering various realms of space habitation, and this pyramid, by changing its faces into any of the color spectrum, it is capable of screening different forms of intelligence for species identification and communication. The color screening of various realms is necessary because each species is organized on different rays of light. The key explains how wheels of technology, modulated by thought waves from sun universes, can visit the outer limits of our galaxy and communicate through faces of pyramids. These are not 3-dimensional geometries of inanimate matter, but multi-dimensional pyramidal combinations which form the inner wheel of the Merkaba vehicle. These multi-dimensional pyramid combinations include what Enoch calls triangular bipyramids, which are pyramids connecting at the baseline so as to revolve as a sphere. There's a picture right there showing the 2 connected ones and how they can detach from each other and kind of look like a triangular UFO. It says, but the bipyramids are limited to the frequencies that surround the lower planetary systems and therefore are not able to work with more than two categories of intelligence simultaneously. Therefore, the bipyramids are used to administer the cosmic law to the lower heavens, and yet they're limited in their navigation. The bipyramids do allow evolutionary creation to connect with the next ordering of evolution, enabling one life system to move directly into the next stepping stone in the greater evolution. So it's saying that there's a form of bipyramids that is limited in function. It can't pass certain thresholds in the cosmos and it can't do certain operations. Still, from our point of view, an advanced ET craft, but it's limited in its capabilities. And it's usually only used in the lower dimensional spaces.
And we're
Therefore, the
talking
triangular
lower
yeah, keep
dimensional
going.
spaces. You're talking about this kind of touches of what I was saying with that flatland idea. So this book, Keys of Enoch, is talking about like some pretty high concepts of higher spiritual dimensions is what it calls it. So when we're talking about the lower dimensions, we're talking like what we're used to, I imagine, the three-dimensional animal existence, we're the mammal species. So this is like the lower dimension. And so what it's talking about, this multi-stage Merkaba forming bipyramid or tri-pyramid vehicles, it'll look like a certain thing, geometric shape to us in our dimension, but technically it's happening from some sort of hyperspace vantage point is where it's actually occurring at.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's crazy. The one of those pictures that guy got on the email looks a lot like one of the pictures right here. If you look at the second picture, the one that's on the second from the bottom, you see that?
The
On the Keys of
Merkaba,
Enoch?
the second from the bottom, it's kind of got the disc shape, but it's also got the pyramids at the top of the bottom.
Yeah. There's if you look at the thumbnail of one of his videos, you see that where like the thumbnail, it shows two different crafts. One looks like the star craft and one looks like the one on the left.
I'm looking at the thumbnails right now. Oh, one of them is the cross craft, and then on the right, there's
and then the one on the left, you see it. It's like elongated. It's like an elongated wing.
Yeah. Well, which video? What's the video title for that one?
Update. I received a creepy email with leaked UFO footage, new footage.
Oh, gotcha, that one. Yeah. So,
seconds.
okay, yeah. So you got the one that's looking. Okay, yeah.
Doesn't that far left one look like the Keys of Enoch picture?
Oh, you think the left one does?
Yeah, and the right one too, but specifically that one diagram that I pointed out.
Let's see. I need to kind of see these side by side. I think I'm ready.
There he is.
Hey, I've just been lurking. I had checked out that video y'all shared earlier. I received a creepy email, and
Yeah,
I mean, of course, they're blurry photos, but it's that forward looking infrared, whatever, and it is like a cross shape, like it's that diamond cross shape, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And when I had scrolled through Keys of Enoch and saw these diagrams, I'm just like, what the hell am I looking at here? Like, I've never even seen a UFO that looks like that, but it would be cool to see one. And now all of a sudden there's like photos taken by the military of these Merkabah vehicles flying around. do you got it pulled up on the screen here?
Yeah, I'm not screen sharing at the moment, but I can, because I'm pulling them all into one window. So I'll share my screen and see if you guys find this useful, and you can give me advice on how to organize this.
Real-time breakthroughs, baby. That's why you watch.
Yeah.
The Legacy YouTube channel. Wake up, babe. New cosmic update drop.
Yeah, right.
All right, so we're gonna attempt to do this kind of live here. So, first of all, let me get these. Let's see, we got these two images.
So Taylor, earlier, when I joined, I was just kind of listening in. It sounded like you were giving the Flatlanders kind of example of like an analogy of what a 3D object would look like to a two-dimensional being.
Yeah,
Is that
I remember
what you were
reading
talking about?
that shit too. I remember learning that when I was young.
Yeah, that's cool. So is that kind of your analogy for these Merkabah vehicles? Is they could be fourth dimensional shapes?
Yeah.
That
So
we're seeing from a 3D vantage point.
100%. And it's, look, there's in the UFO field, whenever people start saying things about multi-dimensional, interdimensional, it's like, whoa. We don't even know what those words mean. But that's why I give the flatlander explanation, where I think that mathematicians and the physics people kind of understand this idea of the flatland and how we understand dimensions. And so if there's an advanced craft that it's not just operating as like a 3D craft that has a time warp bubble around it. That's a traditional understanding of a UFO, is that it's using high energy and electromagnetism, creating some energetic field, which I guess you could say nullifies gravity in that little space that it's in and allows it to kind of move at the light speed or faster than the light speed. That's kind of a traditional understanding. What we're going to get into here with the Keys of Enoch explanations is a little bit different, where it's talking about hyperspace is a term that it uses, hyperspace. And when we see it in our lower third dimensional space, we observe it as these bipyramidal, tripyramidal geometric shapes. And sometimes they flash with colors, but that's how we'll see it. And in these series of new leaks, there's actually a quote where the one guy, or a question was asked to the leaker over email, and it says, why one of these is called the cruciform entity, and it kind of just looks like a cross, like two things like this. That's why it's called the cruciform entity. Someone asked, why do you call it an entity? And the leaker responded and said, well, we call this the cruciform entity class because they've seen them multiple times, because they show a form of response that would suggest that they're intelligent, that they actively respond to when we try and, I guess, intercept with them. And that's why they call it, I guess, an entity in their database, probably. So I find that interesting because these Merkaba vehicles are obviously going to be they're going to be intelligently controlled, and they would be able to respond to stimulus. So I imagine if we're talking about this Merkaba vehicle, specifically this one, it looks pretty similar. It's like what you have is the military is seeing only like the 2-dimensional representation. Technically, it would be the 3-dimensional representation. And they're like cats trying to chase a laser. They put their paw on it and they're like, oh, I can't grab it. Why can't I get to it? And it's just kind of zipping around them. And it's because it's almost like it's taking place at such a high vantage point that we don't even have the technology and mathematical understanding yet to really kind of grasp what's happening. But we can see that it's being like intelligently controlled and that it's operating in our atmosphere. So another way to think of this is that what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg, and most of the iceberg is existing in a higher dimensional space that we can't see. And when this geometric form comes through, that's just like a preview.
Interesting. So this could be almost like, think of it as like the skeleton of the full vehicle, or
Exactly,
it's like in a 3D cross section. Yeah, scaffolding. It's like a 3D cross section of some more complex object that isn't dipping into this reality, and all we're seeing is that little like finger dipped into the fish tank.
Yeah, maybe that's just like some structural part of the ship that they had to make material, and that's the only part we could be seeing. Maybe those are just
and
like
the rest is invisible.
Beams. Yeah, and the rest is invisible.
Interesting. That's wild thought. And that would actually be an explanation for some of the weirder looking shapes people found, the organic looking stuff where you just see like a blob writhing in the air and stuff. And like some of that I've seen, like there are channels dedicated to making CG videos that look like it, but you can still kind of tell when you're seeing the CG stuff. But I've seen a few that are pretty convincing that I believe could be real. They're still pretty weird.
Yeah, and that one configuration of the Merkaba vehicle, the second one, where it shows like the diamonds can go up into the V like that, and it shows like the arc. That looks a lot like the Merkaba vehicle that you're putting up, Taylor, the star one.
Yeah, and I'm kind of organizing this so we can kind of see it better at higher resolutions here. You guys will only see in 720p, but the screen recording is higher quality.
Oh shoot, you're right. I see that the 5-pointed star, it's because it's
Yeah.
like folding into a configuration or something.
Yeah.
Almost like a V-22 Osprey, tilt rotor, how
Hey.
it's like a transformer, it kind of,
Yeah.
it can reposition the tilt rotors based on what it's going to do, and if it's flying in plane mode or helicopter mode, so maybe something like that. They're just getting in a formation. Um, I want to ask you guys, in your perspective, what exactly do you think this class of vehicles is, this Merkaba vehicle? Because it's like, it's not a flying saucer, it's kind of something different.
Well,
Do you speculate?
were you listening to us when we were reading the couple of paragraphs by the Keys of Enoch talking about like the difference between the bipyramids and the tripyramids?
Yeah, it was a little over my head. uh, I definitely need some translation with the Keys of Enoch. I haven't fully grasped it yet. It's
Well,
it's basically saying these are like beings in the celestial hierarchy rather than evolutionary will creatures, right?
yeah, more like brotherhood beings. I mean, I guess they could be
Like Melchizedek's
advanced
or
light and
something.
life. I don't see why they couldn't be light and life evolutionary mortals. You know,
Hmm.
I'm sure light and life evolutionary mortals get pressed into service when need be.
Yeah.
Because they can handle it. It's no big deal for them. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Um, it's saying pretty much that the bipyramids are limited in function. If you perceive a bipyramid, they're limited in the galactic sectors they could travel to and in their capability of
Okay.
operations. And he says, where I was just reading right here, therefore the triangular bipyramid is one of the forms expressing the Merkaba. It nurtures God level growth to God level 1 status among planetary intelligences on the outer edges of their respective galaxies, which are biological testing zones. Earth, experimental testing zone, biological testing zone. Next on the order of expressing the Merkaba intelligence are the tripyramids, which are pyramids that connect at a central capstone so as to fuse pyramidal structures into one energy manifold. The tripyramid is able to span several levels of energy and operate in several coexisting time dimensions, not being limited to a singular superplane. The Merkaba vehicle tripyramids are used only by the Lords of Light to advance civilizations and to form new galactic federations.
Whoa. Interesting. So the fact we're
These
seeing these in
beings,
our airspace,
yeah, right. It means something.
does that imply there's like some conditions being met, or they're mobilizing and they're coming down? Like, this isn't just your visitor from another world observing, just passing through, maybe refueling in the ocean or something like that. This is like high order cosmic government kind of, it's like you see a black helicopter kind of thing, it's like
Yeah. Oh shit, America's here.
yeah.
Yeah, the higher ups, the big boys. Yeah, exactly. I think you might have missed a little bit of it, but we were talking about, we think the current disclosure process is that the integration with the Star Trek Galactic Federation type, the cosmic organization,
Okay.
reintegration. And because our planet is a rebellion planet, and because so disclosure doesn't really happen on other planets, like I was explaining. Normally it's okay for me to be chilling with like a glowing bipyramid next to me and go to the club with like a glowing sphere because it's normal on a normal planet. But because of quarantine, that's not normal for us because everything's cut off. So now the Celestials have to use emergency tactics, emergency operations to fix the planet. And that this whole disclosure process of UAPs and glowing balls in the sky, that's just a normal process, or not a normal process, an emergency. One of the emergency processes they're employing to reintegrate us with the Galactic Fed. It says, these beings represent the coordination of the galactic commands of Michael, Metatron, and Melchizedek. These bodies come together as a unit to form a governing pyramid of knowledge. The vehicle, by changing its color capstone and matching a new color spectrum with the given hyperspace, can overlap one galactic dimension with another without having to travel along a singular dimension, taking thousands of light years just to travel from one galaxy to another. In summary, the triangular bipyramid and tripyramid are essential parts of a giant brain network, where they are working with several space thresholds and have the capacity of universal communications and reprogramming for multiple dimensions of intelligences. They're just saying that the different ways that the Merkaba life vehicles show up.
So, what this makes me think of? It's debatable whether or not the rebellion has ended or if it's ongoing. It's kind of up in the air depending on where you get your sources and what you believe. It could be ongoing,
I
but
think the leaders are taken out, but I think
maybe
everybody else is still free to do what they want.
like that could be the case.
Yeah.
Now let's speculate, what if the rebellion had ended? If it had, how do you let us know in
It's
a way
over.
we're gonna
Yeah.
yeah, how do you let us know it's over? It kind of makes me think of this.
Without freaking us out.
Yeah, y'all might have heard of this World War II Japanese soldier. I think his name was
Great story.
Hiro Onoda, who decades, it was like 30 years after World War II was over, he still continued fighting. What was it?
Yeah.
Lubang Island. I got to pull it up here. Refusing to believe the war was over until he finally surrendered in 1974.
Yeah, they
So he
had
was
to
still out
call
there
his
on this
commanding
island.
officer. They had to call his commanding officer from the old regiment from when he went there. Call him the old guy and then bring him to the island to relieve him of duty because they didn't believe him.
That's wild. He just kept killing people. And so they're flying overhead with planes, dropping down flyers and leaflets into the forest, and he would find it and he thought it was all some psyop disinformation campaign, and he lost his mind, but he refused to believe the war was over. 30 years after it was over. What if that's our case? These UAPs in the air are those leaflets being dropped from above.
It's over.
You know?
It's over. Stop killing each other. Yeah.
Or the war's just begun. Or the war's just begun.
And their main focus is around nuclear facilities and stuff like that. So, could be those are definitely leaflets. So Tejo is putting the compilation up there. All the Merkaba vehicles. I like how they do show. So that's supposed to be a station, like an architectural midway station, they call it. And that little field that revolves on the outside, they call that the sea of glass. Isn't that interesting? So it might be the first visual representation of what the sea of glass might look like, because it's remember they call it a transport and receiving field that revolves around planets.
Yeah, so, you're saying this image in the bottom right of the satellite looking thing, that crystalline looking ring around it, that's referred to as a sea of glass?
Yeah, in these papers. Yeah. So that's an ore station. So that'd be like maybe an architectural type of headquarters thing. They call them midway stations. But those would be huge things that are floating deep in space. Those aren't coming close to Earth, I don't think. I mean, maybe they could. I'm not the arbiter of what the fucking angels do. They want to park one next to us, they can park one next to us. But
yeah. What did you say, Taylor, these UAPs were called? Was it a crucifix UAP?
Cruciform entity is one of the names that they've dubbed it.
Cruciform entity. Oh, chandelier UAP. I'm just kind of doing a cursory glance to see if I can find any more photos that stand out. Here's one. I'll drop it in the chat. I'll just drop any more I find. But this is pretty cool.
You got something?
Chandelier UAP.
Oh, wow. That looks a lot like what Joel's pulling up.
Yeah.
Definitely another Merkaba vehicle. And I'm sure the signature on forward-looking infrared shows up a little bit different too,
That's a good point. What if it's different in infrared than it is in visible light? And what if they're only showing us the infrared because the visible light looks crazy or something?
Yeah, right. Looks like Darth Vader's helmet.
Or what if it was invisible to the naked eye, but it showed up on infrared?
Yep, that's exactly it. Look at the cruciform. It shows it. So this is in Nuremberg, what Techo is pulling up. It's one of the most ancient accounts of a UFO battle. It's in like the medieval times. And look at, they have spheres fighting each other. They
got orbs. They got the cruciforms.
Orbs. Yep. They got orbs linked together with the cruciforms.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And they got these pillar things. Someone might think
cigar shapes.
Oh yeah, like maybe those are cigar shapes, and they actually observed the orbs coming out of those. It's like the mothership thing. Now that's some people. If you would just look at this photo, you wouldn't think that that's what's happening. But I guess the history around it, it's sort of known as a celestial phenomenon. So like the question is, this event that happened, were people actually seeing something in the sky? Like, how was it written about? And this is just from the wiki, but we have, I guess, 1561 is the year. Hans Glaser described a mass sighting of celestial phenomena or UFOs above Nuremberg. And ufologists have speculated that this is ET spacecraft. Skeptics say it's atmospheric phenomena.
Swamp gas.
Yeah, but I'm interested in like what exactly did Hans say here? Oh, here we go. Here's a translation.
Forgot to mention he ate 3 ounces of mushrooms.
Yeah, he forgot. The text of the broadsheet has been translated as follows. In the morning of April 14th, 1561 at daybreak, between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun. And then this was seen in Nuremberg, in the city, before the gates and in the country, and by many men and women. At first there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircular arcs, just like the moon in its last quarter. And in the sun, above and below and on both sides, the color was blood. And there stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. Likewise, there stood on both sides, and as a torus about the sun, such blood-red ones and other balls in large number, about 3 in a line and 4 in a square. Also some alone. In between these globes, there were visible a few blood-red crosses, between which there were blood-red strips, becoming thicker to the rear, and in the front malleable like the rods of reed glass, which were intermingled among them 2 big rods, one on the right, one on the left, and within the small and big rods there were 3, also 4 and more globes. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the ones standing on both sides, and thereafter the globes standing outside the sun in the small and large rods flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and again out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they all burned. And then they all wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After this, there was something like a black spear, very long and thick, sighted. The shaft pointed to the east, the point pointed west. Whatever such sign mean, God alone knows. Although we have seen shortly, one after another, many kinds of signs in the heaven which are sent by the Almighty God to bring us repentance, we still are unfortunately so ungrateful that we despise such high signs and miracles of God, or we speak of them with ridicule and discard them to the wind, in order that God may send us frightening punishment on account of our gratefulness. He just kind of continues here talking about, the wrath of God and how this should turn, and then he says amen at the end.
Christianified.
Right. And
it was wild.
I mean, it's
crazy.
For over an hour, this is happening in the sky, and they're fighting, and it sounds like stuff landed on the ground too. Sounds like they fell to the ground, and it said
medieval crash retrieval.
and that's in there. Yeah, look, there's like orbs on the ground.
Louis Elizondo's ancestors.
And there's people. There's people here. If you look in the bottom right hand corner of the Nuremberg image, there's like people in the old clothes doing like that pose where they're like
pointing at them.
Yeah, they're pointing at the orbs on the ground or smoking. And
oh, you're right. Yeah, they're smoking, crashed into some cornfields.
Like how wild is that? And
paired with that description, it actually makes sense what you're looking at. You see it depicted in the image, the giant black spear pointing to the east. What was that? A mothership?
Yeah.
Well, I did notice that in his thing, he said that like the spheres were flying around in pairs of 3 and 4 and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then same thing with the Keys of Enoch. We just said the onlooker will often see one of these expressions as 3 space vehicles flying in a triangular formation. You want to end your stream so I can share real quick? I got something else there.
I also just dropped, I found on Reddit just a little gallery that has the screen caps from that video of those cruciform UAPs.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this is near a military base in Colorado.
Okay.
So they're just 3 flying in a triangle.
And imagine if if one day in the future, the fathers of the world will be able to explain what these UAP are to their children.
Oh yeah, look at those are the Melchizedeks. Hey, what's up, guys? Student visitors. So that's 3 of them in a triangle. I am going to end my screen share and then restart in a second. You guys know this. We've done some content on this. the Malaysian Airlines.
To another video.
Heck yeah.
Oh, the missing flight.
I mean, they're doing the exact same thing.
Three
There are
orbs.
3 orbs in a triangular formation. What's interesting is that oh wow, look at Mr. Burchett, Tennessee, right there, spearheading the congressional hearing.
Although Mr. Burchett doesn't really have a relation to the MH370 videos. This is a compilation video somebody's cutting together.
Yeah, he's cutting them in. Yeah, he's cutting them in now. But let's see if we can see it. See the 3. Boom.
That's wild.
And for some reason they're making a plane disappear. My favorite conspiracy theory about this video is that the people on that plane were carrying or were about to use knowledge to create some type of anti-gravitic or nuclear engine or something like that, or they're transporting some type of UFO material that they shouldn't have had, and that the ETs were like, sorry, you can't have that.
Going faster.
Yeah, this story has exploded over the internet. There's a guy named Ashton Forbes, and he's done a lot of work, and there's a lot of community insights as well that have come through that investigation. Really interesting. I think there's definitely some angles there, but it's a weird one.
What did you say, Ashton Forbes?
Yes, that's the YouTube channel.
So that's one of the ways you will see them. Another, what is it? Was it the Immaculate Constellation that talked about polygonal? Oh, and you sent me something, Taylor, right? That was in the report that was leaked too. They were like polygonal forms of different tetrahedrons.
I sent a quote.
Right?
And that's like post 2000s is when those have been seen.
So seeing like multiple like polyhedrons stacked in different configurations is one thing that they're noticing.
Well, let me give the dates on that. So this is in the emails back and forth between this alleged leaker. The question was, is there a trend in UAP shapes over time? And the leaker said, yes. Pre-1980, it was mostly disc-shaped or cigar-shaped sighting. Post-2000, a notable increase in orb class and triangular star polygon, star polyhedron chandelier configurations. And then pre-1980, post-2000, rare appearances of cruciform class entities known to the IC intelligence community. So yeah, it seems like post-2000s is more of these polygon shapes, which we are proposing would be these Merkaba vehicles.
Interesting. Maybe the flying saucers were
That's
rebels.
pretty interesting.
I'm just kidding. Another screen share. Well, so the polyhedrons, you guys know what star tetrahedrons look like, right? It's a Merkaba. Yes. That's the name for a star tetrahedron for the viewers. So you don't, just in case, I'm putting it up on my screen. Drop it in the chat. Look at that. Magma already dropped a picture in there. Definitely in that Merkaba shape. So it's a star tetrahedron. Now that's part of Metatron's cube, and you can make any shape out of that. That's the basis behind all shapes. Depending on if you want to like cover faces, you can start adding faces to it, and it'll turn to like a hexagonal, depending on what faces you close off. And I suspect that the different shapes that the ultra-dimensional or interdimensional beings appear as has to do with probably a little bit of their personality, but also the shape of the dimension they're coming from and the shape of the dimension that they're going into. Now I want to pull up this video, the screen share right here. This was captured from a pilot's window about a year ago. I remember when it came out. And people call it a metallic cube, but if you look closely, it's actually a Merkaba shape. And when you put Metatron's cube at a certain angle, it becomes a cube. You know what I'm talking about? If you rotate it. You rotate the star tetrahedron at an angle and look at it the right way, it becomes a cube. Point. So it's all a matter of perception. I will make it big and let's go. This is from a pilot. No, freaking music.
I feel like I've seen this one.
Yeah, see, look at it. It's a metallic Merkaba tetrahedron and it's just spinning. Spinning while it's going straight.
I do kind of see that there. You could see the angles to the Merkaba.
Yeah.
And you're saying, you're pointing out that it's not exactly a cube, but it kind of looks like a cube because you can't you can't quite see the gradients differences with all the faces of the
You can see it
tetrahedron.
best like right there. See the
Yeah.
tetrahedron right there, and then as it spins, it becomes cube-like. Yeah, just like if you were to rotate a tetrahedron in your hand, you can hold it at an angle and look like a cube. So that's a really clear one of that. Like a pilot flew right over that thing. There is a high definition version where they slow it down. I couldn't find it, and they go frame by frame, and you see like the angular. It's a straight up like a solid metallic Merkaba. It looks like a polyhedron. So plutonic solids, sacred geometry, and the crystal people, they got something. They're onto something, you know. Supposedly that's the form that we all have. Apparently we generate Merkaba fields too. We're just unaware of them.
Our aura.
Yeah,
The
and
light
that
body.
Da Vinci was drawing that out and trying to figure that out when he drew the Vitruvian Man of the guy within the circles in the square. He was trying to figure out the Merkaba field and how far it generated. Supposedly these beings, if they're an interdimensional or an ultra dimensional, these might not even be crafts, and these could be the beings themselves appearing like this in our dimension. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, so let's see. The main thing that comes to my head, because honestly, I never heard about these Merkaba shapes and why they would be linked into like advanced physics until I started getting a brief introduction to what's it called, the flower of life. And I realized that the Merkaba is
Terrence
probably
Howard? Okay.
best understood. Yeah, Terrence Howard, definitely had the latest riff on this, but we're going to do some episodes soon. They're already filmed. They're going to be released, but going through a book called Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life by Drunvalo Melchizedek. And honestly, I think that's the best primer explanation on what this Merkaba shape has anything to do with any type of advanced science. And it proposes basically, how do you unfold the flower of life as a 2D image? How do you extrapolate 3D geometry from it? And the sort of proof in the pudding here is that the platonic solids were pulled from the flower of life. And it's very obvious to do that yourself and to pull those out yourself. And so what this suggests is that we have missed the significance of the flower of life. Plato pulled his platonic solid shapes that, are now used in a lot of geometry and mathematics. Like that's a core understanding in geometry and mathematics, those core shapes. But he extrapolated those from this flower of life geometry, which is these overlapping circles. So there's apparently a bit of a secret science locked within that. And that's like a thread to me that would really kind of explain why these geometric shapes have something to do with higher energy forms in the universe condensing into three-dimensional space so that we could see them on our radar and on our cameras, etc.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before in other episodes. Apparently this image is like the shape is the primordial geometry of the entire cosmos. And that's why these beings choose to appear like this. That's why we generate these fields, because it naturally emanates from us. I'll put a picture in the chat right here. This is an embryo getting created when a sperm meets an egg. So the first cells divide along that pattern. And that's just further evidence that our universe, the Keys of Enoch talks about this extensively. Our universe is set up in that Merkaba pattern. 2 inverted conic fields, or you could think of them as whirlpools, like 2 tornadoes inverted where the skinny points meet. So the mouth of the tornado would be going up and one mouth of the tornado would be going down, and they meet at the skinny point, like touching each other. That would also, you can visualize that as a toroid field, like a donut, with the inside being the 2 tornadoes that touch each other. Look at a whirlpool, look at a black hole, look at a galaxy. They all have these spinning dynamics that they always create this force field, this energy whirlpool, this toroidal force field. And I guess that is the way that one dimensional level interfaces with the next dimensional level. You can look at it in the human body. Look at our mouth. Our mouth is that opening of one, and it goes down into our stomach, and then it comes out the other part on our anus. That first tube that's created from the mouth to the butthole is the first thing that the cells generate on every life organism on planet Earth. Doesn't matter what animal it is, once the sperm meets the egg, the very first thing the cells do is create that central tube from your mouth to your anus. And I think there's an entire word for the different classifications where either some animals start with the head at the top and some animals start with their head getting generated from the bottom of the tube. It just depends on what the animal is. It's a big study, but that is that toroidal pattern occurring in our embryonic geometry. So they're, in a sense, studying nature to figure out the best forms and mechanisms to traverse dimensional space. And that's, I think, why they're choosing Merkaba geometries, because it just lines up. It allows them to sink into the stream of the cosmos without having to fight against the shape. They're not fighting against it. They're going with it.
And if you guys remember, something Terrence Howard said on his show was that his linchpin drone device, part of that was an insight on taking the flower of life and trying to understand it as a 3D sort of, as more of like a 3D shape. So he put it into like Blender as a 3D program and sort of created some models. And he points out that it's actually, he calls it the space between where 3 or 4 bubbles meet, like the space between there is this shape. And that's what he ended up using to like make his shape. And it just reminded me, when you showed me this cellular division thing, it reminded me of that. And actually this extrapolates even further up, is like all matter seems, even planets condense into spheres, because I guess the way that mass and gravity works in space and the condensation of stuff, it sort of happens in these spheres. So the circle or the sphere is like the primordial shape. And then you have the combinations of these object particles. And so, yeah, even just within this image that you sent, Deadrick, with the cells forming, yeah, it's interesting. It's like that's the bubbles meeting, and the space in between is that tetrahedral kind of shape. And that can also be represented as the, as you can see, as the, for example, what is that? In that lot, it goes from 1 cell to 2 cell to 4, and then I guess is that 6 next? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 8. Oh, okay. And that links up to that previous image you sent with those 2 tetrahedron shapes. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 on the backside. So that would be that last stage there. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And that's the way that energy, gravity, all the natural forces in the cosmos are a derivative of these geometric principles. Everywhere in the universe, you're going to encounter shapes, dude. You can't see outside of shapes. Everything's a shape, no matter how hard you try.
Everything's a shape.
Shapes, it's just how it is. So it makes sense that there would be a ultimate defining master shape. And if you could tap into that, maybe you could start to harness the powers of energy, electromagnetism, gravity. We know just by virtue of things being shapes, it changes and alters reality. Like I gave the example before. You just get a cone and push air through it. And that cone restricts the airflow just by virtue of it being a cone, and it makes it pressurized so that you can put like a ball on top of it and it'll start spinning, you know. It just shows you that the shape of a cone has properties in time and space just by virtue of it being a cone. So there are shapes that can move matter in specific ways and flows. And maybe that's why they're choosing to use these shapes to appear in our atmosphere. And maybe we should start taking hints. What else I got? I do have a cool one, which is going on the more interdimensional, ultra-terrestrial side. It's one of my favorites. I talk about it all the time, and you guys know which video it is. I'll put it here in the chat. We'll watch it one time, and then I'm going to read a passage, and then we'll rewatch it again. So we're talking about physical ET craft, Merkaba vehicles, and then we're talking about what I like to call celestial beings who don't need to use spacecraft. They have the ability to traverse space just with their conscious personality, inherentness on themselves. Apparently, according to the Keys of Enoch, they glow Stars of David, they glow Merkabas, and they're able to modulate their colors in rainbow technicolor ways, and that's communication. When they flash different green, purple, yellow, that means something. They're communicating. So let's watch this video and let's pay attention to the colors and let's pay attention to the way these things are moving. And this happened on New Year's at midnight over Jerusalem. So New Year's on 2017. That's an important to remember that time.
That's when a lot changed in the UAP field.
And this is right over a really holy spot where Jesus, his entire thing went down. Could be a spiritual polarity point. Let's go.
I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
I do want to have the volume up so you can hear the noises.
Yeah, just make a strange metallic sound, doesn't it?
Like a gravitational noise, yeah. So you hear that whoa, that noise. Look at glowing stars of David, glowing Merkabahs. You can clearly see the shapes. They're flashing orange. The top one's flashing orange. The middle one starts flashing wild colors. Moving as if they're linked together magnetically. Green, purple, orange, green, purple. The sound is crazy. Sets off car alarms and makes dogs start barking. So this is a slow-mo. I'll turn the volume down a tiny bit. So you see 4 of them right there.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, there's 4. I didn't notice those.
And you see that one
street light. Yep.
They're all blinking.
And that one in the center is blinking heavily. It's almost like they're inspecting it before takeoff, right?
Oh.
And then they start communicating. See, it's getting locked in some weird pattern. Like a perfect curve back up. Different color flashes of light. Boom. Then it goes off in this orange amber color, flies off.
Wow, a bunch of alarms go off.
Yep. And see those slow down stills. You see the green and super flash.
So it's like it sent out a shockwave, like it broke the
Look
broke
at
the
amber
sound barrier
color
or something. Oh yeah,
Yep.
There you go. There's that queer amber hue.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna pull up the quote?
Yep, I am. All right, so I love that video because I actually think that is video footage of a specific type of celestial being called a seraphim. Everybody knows that word. They're mentioned in the Bible. They're the traditional angels of old, but the Urantia book
On your shirt?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is on my shirt. What do you know? That's why I wore it. The Urantia book gives a lot more detail on who these beings are, and they're very important and they're very close to us. We all have seraphic guardians that are in charge of helping us in some way, shape, or form. So I highly recommend acknowledging them every morning, saying thank you, and not making their job any harder. So this is from paper 39, the seraphic hosts. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read it all. Your conventional idea of angels has been derived in the following way. During moments just prior to physical death, a reflective phenomenon sometimes occurs in the human mind, and this dimming consciousness seems to visualize something of the form of the attending angel, and this is immediately translated into terms of the habitual concept of angels held in that individual's mind. The erroneous idea that angels possess wings is not wholly due to olden notions that they must have wings to fly through the air. Human beings have sometimes been permitted to observe seraphim that were being prepared for transport service, and the traditions of these experiences have largely determined the Urantian concept of angels. In observing a transport seraphim being made ready to receive a passenger for interplanetary transit, there may be seen what are apparently double sets of wings extending from the head to the foot of the angel. In reality, these wings are energy insulators, friction shields. While celestial beings are to be in seraphim for transfer from one world to another, they are brought to the headquarters of the sphere, and after due registry, they are inducted into the transit sleep. Now, this is the part I'm talking about. I think what I'm about to read is the depiction of exactly what that video is. Meantime, the transport Seraphim moves into a horizontal position immediately above the universe energy pole of the planet. While the energy shields are wide open, the sleeping personality is skillfully deposited by the officiating seraphic assistants directly on top of the transport angel. Then both the upper and lower pairs of shields are carefully closed and adjusted. And now, under the influence of the transformers and the transmitters, a strange metamorphosis begins as the Seraphim is made ready to swing into the energy currents of the universe circuits. To outward appearance, the Seraphim grows pointed at both extremities and becomes so enshrouded in a queer light of amber hue that very soon it is impossible to distinguish the Seraphim personality. When all is in readiness for departure, the chief of transport makes the proper inspection of the carriage of life, carries out the routine tests to ascertain whether or not the angel is properly encircuited, and then announces that the traveler is properly enseraphimed, that the energies are adjusted, and that the angel is insulated, and that everything is in readiness for the departing flash. The mechanical controllers, 2 of them, next take their positions. By this time, the transport Seraphim has become almost transparent, vibrating torpedo-shaped outline of glistening luminosity. Now the transport dispatcher of the realm summons the auxiliary batteries of the living energy transmitters, usually 1,000 in number, as he announces the destination of the transport. He reaches out and touches the near point of the seraphic carriage, which shoots forward with lightning-like speed, leaving a trail of celestial luminosity as far as the planetary atmospheric investment extends. In less than 10 minutes, the marvelous spectacle will be lost even to reinforced seraphic vision. While planetary space reports are received at noon at the meridian of the designated spiritual headquarters, the transporters are dispatched from the same place at midnight. This was midnight on New Year's over a spiritual polarity point.
Ooh.
That is the most favorable time for departure and is a standard hour when not otherwise specified.
Isn't that
So that's
just
what I believe
the
was
coolest thing
happening.
ever?
Yeah, you see the Inspector Seraphim hovering around, flashing those rainbow colors, which I'm sure it's doing its routine diagnostics.
It's
And then
like an exact depiction in the video of
That's
that quote
wild.
in the
It is
Ranch Yearbook.
so it's
Right.
so similar. Except we didn't see that line leaving a trail of celestial luminosity.
I guarantee you they needed like probably master physical controllers of some type just enabled to let us perceive this transaction going on. And I think that too, you do see that line at the very end, but it disappears really quickly.
Mhm.
I think our eyes just aren't even able to really pick it up. We kinda
Also,
lucked
that
out
camera,
there.
that camcorder can probably only pick up so much.
Yeah. Let's watch it when we're done. And maybe those balls on the far left are the energy transmitters, how the 2 of them show up, they said.
Mhm.
And like, see the one at the bottom left, it's supercharging right now. It's pumped up.
There's got to be more videos of this, but you'd probably have to be searching in Hebrew
Oh,
yeah, in
to find
Jerusalem.
them. It would be
like, he
to find
logs
them on
in,
the
it
internet.
starts showing the different colors.
Colors.
And the amber hue, boom, touches it, and then lightning like a torpedo up.
yeah.
And that's him touching him. That's him going up to the carriage and touching it and
And it
shooting
shoots
up,
off.
dude.
And then so one of them, so when it touches, one of them shoots off, but one of them stays.
Yeah. The bottom
Okay.
one that is doing the inspections
Yeah,
is the inspector,
it
the
stays.
chief of, yeah.
Okay, I think the light on the very, very left is a street light. But I think the one kind of to the left,
The one that we see right now.
the one we see right now, I think is another being. But the one
Yeah, me
further
too.
left
You
of
think the
that
one
is
on
a
the
street
farther
light.
left, you think that's a street light? Okay.
Yeah.
But both of those one on the left, they have the same geometric shape though, and they're
Yeah, right.
pulsing with.
Let's
I mean,
see
that
it.
one on the left is pulsing with the other two.
I would say that
process.
that could just be the bokeh blur, but you don't see that on the city lights, Okay.
I'd love to get the highest quality original video and like.
You think
and
that one on the far left is a street light?
Yeah, the furthest left you can see the post.
It does kind of look like a post.
Oh yeah, you do say.
So
to see the
maybe it's
post.
just 3 in total.
Yeah, maybe it's 3.
But if anything, that seems to meet the requirement of the video of the quote having this kind of seraphic guardian like touch him give them
Oh,
that
yeah.
extra charge to dispatch out or whatever.
Dude, you know me. I've been talking about it for years. I've been commented on this video a couple times. I
That's cool.
for sure believe that's a unique depiction that they allowed us to see. And they allowed us to see Seraphim transporting over Jerusalem, a spiritual hotspot polarity point at midnight on New Year's. Just like kind of like maybe it was like dropping off packets saying, hey, the rebellion has been further processed, you know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
All right, here I'll share this. I just couldn't help it when y'all were talking earlier about when y'all had that cube, you were playing that footage of the cube going by the airplane window.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how that could be a tetrahedron. It piqued my curiosity, and I'm like, I wonder if I can go in Blender here and actually recreate that. So I actually made use of the default cube here that everyone tries, and I just turned it into this little threefold tetrahedron and set the origin to the center and created another one. So I got that kind of shape. I did a Boolean
Terrence
operation.
Howard over here.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'd open up Blender, and then Taylor, hear you talk about that. How Terrence Howard had opened up Blender, and it's tempting, you know. You want to mess around with some shapes. I did a Boolean operation so I could get vertices at every point. Then I just connected the dots, and this is what I was left with. I guess I'll leave that.
Yeah. Damn.
So I can go in here.
It's a Joe Rogan moment.
I literally just connected the dots here, and you can see it makes a perfect cube.
Yeah,
straight
exactly.
up.
See, just cover the faces.
Yeah, and that'd be interesting if if that photo leaker, you know, were to maybe watch our video. He's skimming the internet, and he's in these legacy programs, and this is the first time he's heard a cohesive explanation of these Merkaba polyhedral shapes. Who knows?
yeah.
Maybe we're the people to bring that to
new
them.
Subscriber, the CIA. Yeah, no, exactly. That makes a lot of sense. Damn, that's cool. We need to work with that Blender more often. I feel like we could visualize a lot with that. So,
Oh yes,
more of that stuff coming
visualization.
Soon. But what else on the agenda?
Yeah,
I was just gonna
pretty good.
I was gonna say another note. Earlier, Taylor, you had mentioned Ashton Forbes. I actually realized I had heard an interview with him. He apparently received he received emails from a leaker similar to that Strange Mysteries dude y'all been talking about all morning. He got I guess he got in contact with some leaker from China or something like that. And he got all this information. Apparently there's a secret government program to reverse engineer some, I guess we would call it teleportation technology, or like subspace travel or whatever, you know, not necessarily like dematerializing and rematerializing somewhere else, but like zipping through space through like a wormhole kind of thing. And apparently that was the technology that was on that plane, and it was heading somewhere else, and it was intercepted. What I think this guy speculated is that was actually secret government craft we don't know about that teleported the plane. But whatever the case, it could be actual extraterrestrial kind of craft as well. But it's pretty interesting. He went through this whole research trail though of finding witnesses like on an island who had seen the plane somewhere where it didn't, the story didn't match up with the official story of where they claimed the plane had been. So it was a little suspicious. It was almost like a controlled thing.
Oh yeah,
I heard that was the beginning of Lost.
The beginning of Lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Did Lost do it before? MH370 was 2014, I think. So
yeah, that was like an early 2000s show.
That Lost like early.
That show ever.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, yeah, no, that's an interesting case, and I actually, I think actually it's pretty compelling that those orbs are actually American technology, and what was presented was that there were like 20 scientists from a computer like chip company on that plane, and so they had a lot of like IP from the company, and allegedly they were defecting to China, and they were going to bring that knowledge with them. And so the U.S. government was like, we can't let this happen because this technology is like integrated with some of our UAP back engineering programs. We also have the product that uses this technology is this wormhole teleportation, these orbs that can grow really fast, that we've already figured out how to use, and they're going to basically hand that knowledge to a foreign adversary. And so they decided to use that technology to actually just straight up take the plane right out of the air. And yeah,
they were going to leak the orb technology that was used to
something like that's kind of the thing. And that was actually through Ashton Forbes' investigation. Someone wrote a letter to him, and they were presenting themselves as a leaker, and they actually presented that full story. They were like, "Look, this was actually basically a counter espionage operation, and the U.S. government actually took that plane right out of the air, and it was also a show of power to China that, look, we have this capability."
Yeah, because apparently the leaker was like a Chinese intelligence operative or something like that, and it was actually a very interesting interview.
I may not be updated on this latest leaker that he's been talking to. I haven't kept up to date with all his videos, but I thought it was very compelling. It also felt very grassroots, and the connections were synchronistic in the way that he found the information, and the community was getting involved. It felt like a sort of perfect storm of UAP legacy program conspiracy being unraveled right before our eyes, because the initial thought would be, oh, those 3 orbs, extraterrestrials teleported that plane. But the crazier story is actually that since we've had reverse engineering programs since the 50s, that we actually have figured out some of that orb technology, and that we took that plane, which is a pretty wild, they're never going to admit to that, but it's in the context of reverse engineering and these orbs being a common thing. Yeah, it's pretty powerful, compelling.
If that's true, that's pretty wild, because in my life, I've seen when I was a kid, I've seen 2 different UFO sightings, and neither of them were flying saucers. They were both just 3 stars in the sky moving in a formation. They looked like stars, but they're moving in a triangle formation like that. I've seen that twice, once as a kid, once as a young adult. Both times it was the same thing. And it's one of those things, like, how do you explain that? It looks like 3 separate lights kind of moving in formation. That's exactly what you see in this video. So could I have actually just seen a reverse engineered government formation of teleportation orbs? I don't know.
Yeah, and
you were the chosen one.
There's some of these latest leaked photos. Even the leaker says in the email threads that he or she thinks some of these are actually human craft. And one of those, for example, would be these boomerang UFOs that look, I would say, look like of another version of the stealth craft, really, because our stealth craft is like very triangular with the big wings, and anything with the wing shape, it's a suggestion that it's probably using a more conventional, surfing on the air and using thruster jets. Although even the B2 uses something called the Byfield Brown effect to apparently like electrostatically charge the entire hull to like
maintain lift.
Maintain lift. And it's almost like you could call it maybe like, I don't know, 10% anti-gravity, but mostly
it's
normal
a big static
propulsion.
Like when you rub your socks on the ground.
So, but yeah, so
I saw something like that was pretty interesting. I'll see if I can pull it up here. It was like ion thrusters or something.
Well, I like that. That's kind of cool. That would make sense that we kind of had this kind of technology, glowing orbs. I do want to highlight the fact that then in the recent past couple of years, I think it was in the past 4 years, an article came out that the Navy had a patent released, submitted a patent, or got a technology patented. And it was the ability to create midair plasma balls as drones. And it's a real patent. It's interesting. Nobody, I remember it was kind of hot. It was all over Reddit. Yeah. So they can create midair plasma balls using lasers. It's a patented technology. I have it up on the Popular Mechanics right now. You guys can look into it, but just something to be aware of if we're going into the whole, these could be US technology. Obviously, where do we get the technology from crash retrieval programs? I'm not sure. I did put this funny video in from Reddit. I don't know how real it is, but
Oh yeah, let's see here.
I'm sharing my screen right now.
Oh, you're gonna screen share, okay?
I just like it. I don't think it's real, but it's fun. It's interesting,
What?
right?
That's pretty wild.
Right.
You
It's
don't
like,
think that's real?
I mean, I'm just saying that so people watching this don't think I'm crazy.
But you want to believe.
Hell
I
yeah,
don't know.
dude.
It looks pretty convincing. I
Right?
don't know what that
Glowing
could be.
plasma ball, getting up close and personal.
The problem is that this can be created fairly easily in a CG program. So all they would need, they could even have that, they could do that light as a real light that they film, like to get the video, and then they just CG into sort of like the ball of light to replace whatever was actually generating the light, and then they just freaking make it low res so you can't tell the difference anyway. So
that that, or even a string with something burning on the end of it, and you can't tell because
That's what I
it's
was
in
gonna
the dark.
say. Yeah, you
Where-
a
could
red
do it like
flare
that.
could put off that light.
Yeah, a flare. Yeah.
Yeah, but it does look like something that how it would show up if it did, you know. But yeah, so now we're just going deep down the rabbit hole.
As always.
Anybody got any cool videos to pull out of their ass? No.
We could look
I
at
got
that
some stuff I
triangle one you
shared.
sent, the rotating triangle.
Oh yeah, this one's trippy. Trippy. Oh, thank you. Yes, we can end with this one. We can end not with this one, but with this subject matter.
Yeah, and this is more of the human angle, I guess we would say.
I was gonna say, yeah, on that tip. So on the riffing off the human angle and ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, aka when we do a crash retrieval and retrieve a crashed UFO vehicle, we try to backwards engineer it, a la Bob Lazar. Go check out his story. And apparently we have successfully done this, and that's what the government is trying to keep a secret. It's part of the reason why they want to keep the entire UAP thing a secret, because then they're going to have to reveal that we've been backwards engineering them. And that we've been hiding technology, which is cool, but it's shitty because we want it. So
Spinning on its own axis.
Here would be one. I like to call this, and it's colloquially known on the internet as the TR3B Manta. Supposedly, it's one of the first anti-grav vehicles we created. They created it in the 70s or 80s, and it can negate 85 to 90% of the Earth's gravitational pull. And so the funny stories or the crazy conspiracy theories that I like is that the F-117 stealth fighter and the B-2 stealth bomber were cover-ups, were created as cover stories for this craft.
Interesting. For like, let's just throw something together, make it look like this is what we were working on.
Yeah. So if anybody sees it, we can blame it on that.
That's tight.
Yep. And these have been being seen since the 70s and 80s. Everybody talks about the black triangles. I think that would be it right there. But I do want to bring up another one from the reputable source of military.com.
Ooh.
Supposedly, this is daytime footage of the TR-3B in operations, and two of them together. And I think this is actually filmed over one of the highly classified test sites.
Look at that.
So there's supposed to be two of them, and that's supposedly the other one's a TR-3C, the small one going around orbiting. And these are three different anti-gravity crafts that our government has.
This is so cool. And the two TR-3Bs are like in conjunction, like just parallel to each other, like they're locked in together. Dude, and this is like that Keys of Enoch depiction where you see the lines connecting the two triangles, you know?
Yeah. That's funny. Are we trying to mimic the Space Brothers? See, and then you see one, see how it thrusts up and then changes. plane.
Oh, whoa!
And then
We
you
can
see
do
the
that
3
direction.
dots.
Holy cow!
You see the 3 dots in the center, and then the other one
Yeah.
lights up 3 dots. So those are the anti-gravitic propulsion devices
Yeah.
That is cool.
So supposedly they just float. They free float on the Earth's like gravity field or the magnetic field, like it's a magnet, and then they use those 3 thrusters to kind of like vector them different directions.
Mhm.
Okay, that is one of the best theories I've heard for how flying saucers navigate through space is that they don't actually generate their own thrust per se, but they attract and repel towards different gravitational fields. So they'll
Yeah,
become like discordant to the like frequency of the Earth, and they're repelled away, and they become harmonious to the frequency of, let's say, the sun. Then they slingshot off of that towards another one, repel away from the sun, attract towards another star, something like that.
yep. Yeah, so that's from military.com, daytime exercises of the TR-3B.
That's
You got to
cool.
see the underside of them, the glowing balls. That's supposed to be the ARV, an alien reproduction vehicle, American made, which is kind of crazy. It just like hovers, floats on the Earth's gravitational field or magnetic field, like 2 magnets. If you hold a magnet and another magnet, you see one just floating up top. That's what these craft are doing. But they're using our Earth as one of the magnets, and they're just floating on top.
Now, the TR-3B, do you think this one can actually go into outer space, or does it require the Earth's magnetic field to kind of surf on?
They might not
So
have figured that out yet.
the crazy Biblioteca Pleiades website, I was reading the crazy website. It said that they're restricted to the last planet of our solar system because they need planetary fields to generate their system. So they can get to the last part of our solar system, but they can't get past that because of circuits. There's no more circuits.
Okay.
That's cool.
Interesting. So
Like,
yeah,
they
that's
just haven't
not,
figured that out
it's
yet.
like they haven't really figured out the interstellar UFO yet in that case.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's because, and that
I wanna
maybe that's
believe.
what's so hard to back engineer with these other UFOs, because most of the UFOs that we've captured, I imagine some of them are actually have traveled here from outside the solar system, and they have the correct gravity engine to create that like wormhole thing, where they don't just surf on our planetary gravitational field. They sort of like, I guess, can negate gravity and then point somewhere and shoot off. But the version that we have is maybe it's that Townsend Brown stuff, where we have basically we figured out some gravity science that got classified early on, and then we possibly sort of combined some of the alien craft back engineering, and maybe between those things we have the first version TR-3B, but we're still working on the interstellar version. And the interstellar version, maybe it requires a different type of metamaterial that we don't know how to make yet to like actually craft the hull. When it comes to like, if you've heard about some of these metamaterials, they have like they're atomically organized, which means you have to have the agility to build and manufacture atoms together. Your machine has to build at that small of a scale to like correctly, get those materials. So I think that's probably what's still holding us back a little bit. Some of those material sciences, and also possibly some of the computing systems needed to traverse the stars.
Yeah, that too.
So
Because what if like we can crudely reverse engineer how the effects work on like some reactor or something like that? Oh, you got a cool video pulled up here.
Yeah. So this is another video of the TR-3B at nighttime operations, and you can see one of its abilities. Very interesting. There's multiple videos of this craft in Europe and in America doing the same thing. It shoots a red laser out of the center circle.
Oh,
Check it out. I got multiple videos.
16 years ago.
So you see the same pattern that we saw in the TR-3B from the other videos, with 3 dots in the corners and the 1 dot in the center. Those are the thrust propulsion mechanisms. You even see some lights in the back, those running lights. Look at that center part. It's like a torus, a modulating torus.
Oh, that'd be amazing to just see that.
Watch it. Starts doing some crazy shit. I think this was in Texas.
Yeah, they're all having a party.
Or is it, maybe I can
That's
fast
cool.
forward, yeah. See that?
Oh,
Oh, it's out of the front. It's out of the front.
it's a
I
laser.
thought it was out of the center. Yeah. And it can scan. And what I read about it is supposedly that thing can touch any type of technology and somehow transmit data from it. Turn it on, turn it off. Like,
You think they're trying to hit the cameras, turn off the cameras,
Let's get the footage.
or it's like or they're just using it as
Look
like
at that. Look
a
at that
measurement
center part.
system.
Yeah, or it could be, yeah, you're right. Maybe it could be measuring how far they are from the ground so they don't crash the plane, you know? And it's using like automated computers to.
Mm-hmm. That one's pretty interesting.
That's cool.
For sure.
And there's a recent video that just came out on Reddit, and another person posted like, "Oh my god, look at this red black triangle with red laser coming down," and it was posted like a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it's happening a lot.
Really? Okay. Because have you seen those telescopes? I forget exactly why they do this, but there's these telescopes. You know those giant observatory telescopes that actually shoot lasers up into the sky as they're observing. So it could be something like that. What I was going to say about reverse engineering, what could be a roadblock is like we might be able to crudely reverse engineer the mechanical aspects of a ship and like how the reactor works, and we can start to figure out how to repel off the gravity of our planet or something like that. But what if there are alien onboard computers where we can't even comprehend, and how do they control these things? Is there an alien operating system? You get like galactic firmware updates, and we don't even know, the first thing about like an alien programming language and how, they might have protocols about handling the math of like orbital trajectories and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like a plugin that's already been, you just install it on the AI of your ship, so you don't have to do that math and calculations yourself. Like Navy ships in like the 40s and 50s, people on board had to calculate every little trajectory of how they're going to fire a projectile or something like that. And as we move forward, we automate that stuff. I would imagine something like a UFO, it's something like a flying saucer made by an alien species. It might work like telepathically, so they're not even having to mess around with consoles or anything. They just have a destination. They tell the onboard AI, and then it's got some alien programming language that figures all that out.
Yeah, I have a source that explains the necessity for an advanced computing system and also an advanced measurement system. Because when you're traveling through interstellar space in your UFO, just because you're going you might be going faster than light, but if you run into something, you'll still interact with those energy fields, which is not good. Or like you can't just go through a planet, even if you're going at the speed of light.
Yeah.
So you need to navigate, and you need to go as far as you can in a straight line as possible. And then you might have to like stop and then shift and edit your direction a little bit. So there's two things you need to do that. One is existing star maps, or two, you need to be able to send a beam out to measure what's in front of you. And a laser is not fast enough, because if you're shooting a laser at light speed to try and measure what's in front of you, but you're traveling at light speed, it's not good enough. So your measurement system actually has to be also based on the anti-gravity principles. So they call it field scanning, where you're shooting a field that is nullifying sort of the space gravity within a certain vector or direction, and it allows you to read out as faster or at a pace that matches what you're able to go.
That's really interesting. I'd be curious to see those sources.
Remember the L conversion system that the Keys talk about?
Oh yeah,
computer that scans star fields and A and B line grids. So that
could be exactly that.
Yeah. Here is supposedly a video of a couple from the UK. I remember it coming out a long time ago. I don't know the exact upload date,
12
but
years ago.
It's around 10 years ago too. Supposedly it was a TR-3B.
Look at that.
And this one's really cool. It shows you what the top looks like. It has like fins, and then you see its engine turn on.
And it does seem to have some thrusters on the back.
Towards the camera. Yeah, you saw those lights.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks super ominous once it turns all the way to the camera. It looks mean, dude. It looks like a U.S. craft. You know how we make our shit look mean? Like, look at that. Look at the two
You're
fins.
right.
Yeah. And it is, that it looks like an
And then watch,
evolution
see,
of
like,
the
boom, look at
B2.
that.
Whoa.
Whoa, that is freaking cool. So
And then
what
watch
is
what
this, like,
happens. Watch
night
what
vision?
happens. Boom. Circle.
Oh, what?
Look it. Gone. Bye. See you later. Just
What?
disappeared.
Oh,
So it just like created
I
that
was wondering
field
why-
around itself
why-
and then phased out.
that's really interesting. Like right from the center, this field encapsulates it. I was wondering why the footage was green like that, and I realized it's probably infrared, like night vision. You think?
Night vision. That's old school night vision. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's crazy that these vehicles exist. These videos have been out for a long time. All you gotta do is type in black triangle UFO, and the internet has so many accounts of them, so many videos like that. Clearly, the TR-3B. I mean, Lockheed Martin's trying to be slick with it, but or whoever's making it. That would be the ARV, the Alien Reproduction Vehicle. I think. I mean, I don't know. I don't work in the freaking facilities, but I think that might be an old model actually, and that we have newer things.
Interesting.
So
Here, I'll go ahead and show something as well. I might as well. Going off of what y'all were talking about earlier about ion levitation.
oh shit.
It's actually an experiment that can be done. Like we could do this.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Look
we
at that.
should.
In
We
effect
should
of
do
physics.
Yeah, these
The
fools got
thing
the
about it,
TR-3B in front of them.
Right? The thing about it though is that the power is supplied externally from like a wire or something. As soon as you put any kind of like power source onto it, it's going to be too heavy and it's not going to get up off the ground. So every time you see this, there's usually like some kind of wire or something like that. There's another one that's actually really interesting. I'll show you.
That's funny. And a lot of the videos too, you do see when the UFOs are just cruising, they have that wobble. Like you kind of see in
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right. This one here is pretty impressive. It actually is carrying some weight. I think
Oh,
I do
wow.
see some
Ion
wires
propulsion,
attached
but
to
is
it.
that also a drone with propellers, or is that only the ion
No,
stuff?
that is
Oh, man.
literally
Damn.
no
That's
fans
fire,
or
dog.
anything. It's pure electrical discharge, like electrostatic discharge, just
Yeah.
from the
So it's creating
structure.
ionic winds
Now,
that are
when
going
they
down
say
that we can't see.
ionic winds, if I go underneath that, will I feel stuff going down, or
I have
how
no
is it
idea. Maybe your
floating?
hair will
How is it
feel
floating?
might-
Like,
magnetic.
yeah.
is it
Maybe your
actually
hair will stand up.
is it creating a magnetic charge like that can interact with the Earth, or is it actually like a? Yeah, I don't know. If I don't
is
quite
it
understand
thrust
it.
or is it riding on the Earth's electromagnetic?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to reproduce, find out.
Amen. Yeah, and we're going to document it, and the viewers are going to be part of it.
It seems
I saw this
pretty simple to make a.
in Jesse Michaels' video about Townsend Brown, because he explains
Damn.
that this is how most people explain away Townsend's experiments, where they just say
Okay,
it's
what is
ionic
that?
wind.
What is that Townsend Brown's you're talking
There's
about?
a book called The Man Who Mastered Gravity, and it's like one of the best explanations for the U.S. Navy's like initial gravity programs that had success. So Townsend Brown was a scientist, and he was doing like anti-gravity experiments. But then allegedly, based on his story, is that they took it into black budget projects, and he kind of disappeared from there. But it's pretty decently compelling.
And just like Townsend Brown,
That's
I think we should disappear as well and call this episode
You're right.
wrapped.
I'm right.
But I do want to say, you bring up the Grabiflyer, which is the goal that me and Magma are personally trying to achieve.
I'm still fascinated with this.
Yeah, this person was able to make levitation, and that isn't ionic propulsion. That's something totally different. That's
This is like the real deal UFO.
Yeah. He's floating on the Earth's gravitational field there. Yeah.
Apparently, this guy's received death threats and all this stuff.
He's from
Whatever.
Russia.
Yeah, this Russian dude.
see,
He
look
comes
at-
in
he
here
puts-
with a hula hoop just to show wires connected above it. And he's got multiple
That hula
videos
hoop has
like
it looks like you can unhook it.
detach it. You're right. He's got
Sleight of
several
hand.
videos like
Yeah,
this.
he just unhooked it, and then he hooked it. Then he hooked it.
Like in front of his body.
He took it
Could be
above
a good
the
magic
frame
trick,
of view, and then hooked it.
Undid
and
it.
dropped it.
I can see that. Yeah.
Duh.
Now he does have multiple videos like this where he's going with a stick above it, and he's got it outside in a field and stuff like that, so that you couldn't reasonably expect there to be like a frame above it. It's probably beyond the scope of this video, though. We'll go through maybe a separate Gravaflyer episode, and someday I would love to actually straight up build one.
For sure. We're giving plugs for the Fall Guy right now.
Yes.
That's a good movie,
Now-
though, by the way. Great movie. All right. And just like Townsend Brown, we're going to disappear for a little bit. Not really. Stupid joke. But we're going to call it a wrap for the day. I hope you enjoyed this scrumptious conversation about the different types of extraterrestrial vehicles, what they may appear looking like. Will they be physical beings? Will they be interdimensional beings that can phase into our reality? Where are these beings coming from, and what is my relationship to them? Hopefully this episode of the Cosmic Update kept you informed. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all the celestial broadcasts. You know me, D-Bake the Wise, Magma, Tate Chilla. We here on behalf of the Cosmic Confederation. Just kidding. Peace.